Hello and welcome to the Poland Paradigm. Today in this video we're going to go over the components of fitness programs. Um, the, there's four main components to every fitness program, well every successful fitness program. There's mobility, number one. Number two, strength, power, and endurance. These are the four components to a successful fitness program. So component number one of fitness programs is mobility. So let's talk about what this means a little bit. It means the ability to move a joint through a range of motion, or ROM, range of motion. Let's talk a little bit about what range of motion means. So every joint has the ability to move, and there's different factors that can affect how far you can move. For example, how much muscle mass or fat mass you have. There's diseases that can prevent range of motion, such as arthritis. But a range of motion, so if this is somebody laying on their back, right, their arms are just there at their side, and here's their hip joint with their toes, they should be able to move their hip joint through a range of motion. They should be able to move. So let's talk really quick about why mobility is important. Well, one, aside from keeping you healthy and out of pain, what we're going to see in the next components of fitness programs is that if you cannot move, if you have no mobility or loss of range of motion, it makes the other components of the fitness program very difficult. The next component of our fitness programs that we have is strength. Strength is the ability of a muscle or muscle group to exert maximal force against a resistance for one repetition through a full range of motion. So strength, the big things to remember here is maximal force for one repetition. So our power lifter here is lifting quite the hefty weight. Does this mean that he can go out and run a marathon quickly, or that he can run a sprint quickly, right? He probably does not have a 4.5 second 40-yard dash. Probably not, because the way he trains is specifically to lift a heavy weight for one repetition. He wants to be able to do a lot of work, basically. Work. So let's talk about what is work. And it is force times distance times the cosine of theta, which has to do with the angle. But just to keep things simple, this isn't math class or physics, so let's just keep it simple and basically say force times distance. So what does this mean? Force times distance. So if we have two guys, right, let's clear up some room here really quick. So if we have two guys and they're running in a foot race, right, guy number one, he weighs 160 pounds, and then guy number two weighs 220 pounds, and they both run a distance of 40 yards. Who would exert the most work? Who would do the most work here? And it would be our 220-pound guy. Because they're both, he's actually having to exert more force to move a body weight of 220 pounds for the same distance. So therefore, he would perform more work. So now that we know what strength is, the ability to move a heavy load or maximal force for one repetition, let's talk about what is power. Power is the ability to move a load or perform movements quickly. That's the big word here. Quickly. Is to be able to do these things quickly. So the actual formula for power is equal to work, now that we know what work is, over time. So what this means is to be able to perform work in a shorter amount of time would make you more powerful. The more work you can do in the less amount of time, the more powerful. So here, let's kind of see a real-world example of this. For simplicity, let's use the same analogy of guys running in a foot race, except for now, they both equal 160 pounds. And as well as weighing 160 pounds, they're both running 40 yards. So let's say that person A runs it in 5.2 seconds, and person B runs the 40-yard dash in 4.5 seconds. Who would be more powerful? It would be person B, because they're both doing the exact same amount of work, right? They're moving the same load, 160 pounds, for the same distance, except for, here's the big thing, the time, right? Person B can do it in a less amount of time, shorter period of time, which makes him more powerful. Moving on to endurance. Endurance is the ability to move a load or perform movements for a prolonged period of time. So when a lot of people think endurance, they think of this word right here, cardio. I'm going to say let's not use this term because that is a system. It is not a type of training. That's not performance specific. When you say I'm endurance training, that's performance specific. When you say I'm doing cardio, that has nothing to do with performance, right? You don't say, oh, today I'm going to train my lymphatic system. So I don't think we should be saying I'm going to do cardio. A better word, other than saying cardio, would be using endurance, or even this word right here, which I love, conditioning. The big thing that I want to point out is that in order to train for endurance, you don't need to run on a treadmill. You don't need to use an elliptical machine, right? You can move a submaximal load for a prolonged period of time. So an example of this would be pushing a weighted sled. I'll draw a little picture of it, right? If you haven't seen what a weighted sled looks like, it's basically one of these guys, and then you stack weights around it, and then here's some guy pushing it with all of his might, right? Sweating, going crazy, pushing that for basically running with it as quickly as possible. That's a form of conditioning or endurance training that will increase your ability to move a load or perform movements for an extended period of time. All right, thanks for watching. Just a quick review. The 4 components that we went over today of fitness programs are mobility, strength, power, and endurance. Go ahead and check out the videos getting a little bit more in depth, specifically on each of these 4 categories.